Hello, everyone. And for everyone who's listening versus watching, I want to apologize in advance to Michael right now because he has the CBP logo almost on his forehead right now, but it looks great on you, Michael. So I appreciate everybody joining today. We had a conversation a few weeks ago, and in that one, it was what we call Industry Hour. Well, we had some more industry suppliers in that one. So I'm excited to have a conversation today, but from the brewery perspective, as we look at your past year, what it's been like, some of the challenges you faced, how you adapted, but more importantly, how you're succeeding moving forward. So with that said, Jason, because you are to the right of me, if you could tell everybody a little bit about who you are and what you do. Welcome.
So I'm again Jason Snyder. I'm with Peak Drift Brewing company that we just announced after a lovely time of trying to come up with a name. That was probably our sixth option after the trademark people shot down the first five. And so I'm director of sales and operations for a really awesome, unique startup brewery that's not really a startup based off of its size, and we have actually two locations that we're building kind of overlapping. So yeah.
Okay, Jason, I have two questions for you before we turn it to Michael. First off, what was the number one name on your potential name list, if you're able to reveal it, that was turned down?
So if I gave everyone one guess as to what brewery we basically couldn't use the name, I guarantee you all could all guess it. So so the building is a historic manufacturing building. It actually used to house one of the country's largest clothing manufacturing facilities, and it was named for its founder, Eugene E. Stone. So they had several names that were not actually the word stone, but different iterations. I really liked Briefly Stoned, but we couldn't use that one. So.
Well, I'm sorry. I do like Peak Drift. And what's the significance behind Peak Drift? Jason, can you hear me loud and clear? What's the significance behind the name Peak Drift?
Sorry, that cut out. I didn't hear what you said.
No, I was asking you, Jason, what is the significance for the name Peak Drift? We're gonna keep that a secret, everybody. You'll have to tune in later to find out why he chose the name Peak Drift. But Michael, you are up today. Tell everybody a little about who you are.
Yeah, my name is Michael Crowell. I own Petrichor Brewing in O'Fallon, Missouri, and it's a brew pub with a 5-barrel system. Then I opened up with my brother Jonathan in 2019. So we're on year 2.5. And we're we just actually got SBA approval for our second location. So we are closing on that loan on August 4th to really ramp up the construction on our new location in the Lake of the Ozarks. So it's about 2.5 hours away from our current location. So.
Oh my gosh, that sounds amazing. That's going to be exciting things coming in your end.
Sorry?
That's going to be exciting stuff coming up in your world.
Yeah, it is. And we are rebranding from Petrichor to Shortleaf. So we're changing our name. So both locations match, because we brought on my other brother, Matt, and my brother-in-law, Bob, to be in the partnership. So we thought it was best to rebrand and kind of have a brand new thing for everybody. So we're really excited.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us today, Michael. Carmone, you're up. It's always a pleasure having you present at past conferences we've done in CBP, but for everybody who hasn't seen your face before, tell them a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Hi, I'm Carmone Macfarlane, and I'm with the Phoenix Brewing Company out of Mansfield, Ohio. We are we have 2 brew systems. We have a 5-barrel pilot system, and we also have a 20-barrel production system and a tap room. We don't serve food, but we do the food truck rotation like a lot of people do, and this is our 7th year. So, and my job is creative and marketing.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us again today. And Pola, you are up right now. You are driving back from Pennsylvania to your home state of New Jersey. But tell everybody else a little bit about what you do in the industry, besides take awesome vacations with your family.
It was an awesome, much needed vacation. So I'm one of the owners, and of course the truck comes by at that time. And brewers at Lower Forge Brewery in New Jersey. We've been open for a little over 5 years now. And in New Jersey, we're not allowed to make or sell any food or have anything to do with food trucks. So I'm lucky that the township has a food truck night every month. It's been a real interesting year for a Main Street family-owned brewery, but we feel that we've made it to the other side. And that was our goal when the pandemic started, was just get to the other side. We're a 3-barrel brewery, and we self-distribute. That's one of the things in New Jersey that we're allowed to do. We don't have to use a distribution company, so we're just locally distributed to a few bars and liquor stores and restaurants.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us today. And Pola, how's the summer been for you? Has it been busy? Are people craving to come back out to the tap room? What's your experience been like? I think we might have lost her, but I would love to hear from everybody else on today's panel. You know, we hear the term roaring 20s quite a bit, and personally, I get a little frustrated hearing it because it's just a little silly. But, you know, people are craving interaction. They're going to tap rooms to meet other craft beer fans, looking for a little interaction, a little sense of community. What has your summers been like so far?
Before mine crapped out on me, our summer is surprisingly better than some others. I think because people can't get reservations to travel anywhere. So our weekends, just recently, we've noticed an uptick in sales and takeout.
Do you believe it's simply because people are just craving to get out of the house, or why do you believe they're coming out in larger amounts and more frequency?
I think people are craving other people, not only getting out of the house, but being able to socialize again. Although we still have people that want to only be outside. We're going to try to keep our outside expanded premises as long as we can.
Awesome. I hope you get to keep it a while. And for everyone else, you know, how is your summer going so far?
We're doing really well. I do the brewing side. I have a brewer, a full-time brewer, that he gets to do all the fun. So I'm the one that designed all of our beers, and I'm slowly giving the reins over to him because I'm actually a full-time teacher, so I don't get to do it as a job. But I also do most of the social media management for our company, and I do our events too. So we started a farmers market this year. It's been really, it's quadrupled our sales on Sundays. And we don't allow food vendors. We can have them, but we have we run our own kitchen at our place. So it's a brew pub that we have a 5-barrel system in, but we also run our own kitchen, which is kind of unique in the St. Louis area. At least most of the breweries here have they'll have a kitchen, but they'll actually rent that space out to a different company. But we actually run ours, so we don't allow food vendors. So we've been making killer sales on the food side because we started doing brunch this year every Sunday. And we've increased our, we actually have to outsource a lot of our beer because we can't keep up in our 5-barrel system. So we do have 1 10-barrel tank and 3 5-barrel tanks, but we just can't keep up with our wheat beers. So we have to outsource that. And we've had to increase our requests. Basically, we do about 35 barrels a month from a different brewery to keep up. But it's been going really well in here in St. Louis, at least. And this month is going to be a record for us in terms of sales. So we're really excited.
That's fantastic, Michael. That's interesting. You mentioned that a lot of breweries in the St. Louis area rent out their kitchens, because that's not something you hear about in a lot of other locations. Why do you think that is?
I think it's just a pain in the ass. I think
different businesses.
It is, and you know, it's for us. My brother and I, my whole family, we all grew up working in fast food. So we've designed our kitchen around that concept, like quick, good quality. And I think a lot of people get into it because they love beer and they don't think about the food side at all. But that's something that really brings in a lot of customers is the food side. So we have like elevated bar food. So we don't have like cheap, shitty chicken strips, for example. We do beer battered chicken strips and stuff. So we try to make it all ourselves. And that in itself poses problems because the staffing has been a huge problem this year in the kitchen. We've had a really hard time keeping people in there, even though we're paying over $16 an hour to employees in the kitchen, and we still can't keep them. So it's crazy. But other than that, headache. I think that's why it's because people they're just focused on the beer side and not necessarily thinking that, food is a revenue source. There's restaurants everywhere. They've got to be making money. So, and that's actually what helped us through the pandemic too, was we were able to give really awesome deals on food and basically give away beer. And so we were killing it during COVID. We actually had reduced hours and we did more sales than before we were even open. So
Well, that's a great story there. I'm glad you're doing so well. And you threw out so many talking points I want to touch on over the next hour, but we're going to hear from Carmen next because you are operating as well. I'd love to hear about, what's going on in your tap room right now.
Our tap room, it's been kind of unusual, like with Ohio, being in Ohio, we reopened right at the end of May, beginning of June, without a lot of real heads up on that. And all of the tap rooms, all of the businesses, restaurants starting to reopen full force kind of put a little bit of a hurt on our production line, trying to manage canning, trying to manage production, trying to manage our pilot system and tap room sales has proved to be interesting this summer. And we've been, playing with the challenge and really kind of trying to go back and evaluate which beers we're going to have to cut. We've had to cut a couple of beers off of our rotation that we planned on doing. We've reworked a few of those back in the fall, knock on wood. Hopefully it'll be okay. But yeah, it's been good. Our tap room has been, the kind of dynamic has changed a little bit. We've closed a little earlier now. So that makes a difference. Our live music on the weekends comes in a little bit earlier. It still works out really well. People are still wanting to go home. We have 2 patios, which is nice because people spread out across both of those. Overall, it's been really good. And we've been very, very lucky. We are blessed with a phenomenal staff. Our staff members are amazing. They have been troopers through the whole thing, and they always, give so much back to us that we're just really blessed with that.
Awesome. Well, let's dive into the staffing topic right now because that's something I know a lot of breweries are facing. Michael, you mentioned staffing's a challenge right now. Carmen, you're lucky enough that your staffing is busy. I'd like to hear from Pola as well. But Jason, you're a brewery in planning, and in planning right now, working towards opening day. When do you plan to open, and have you already started thinking about what you're going to do to deal with the staffing challenges other operating breweries are having?
Yeah, so we actually, so our smaller, 5 hectoliter brew pub restaurant is due to open mid-October. Equipment came in last week, and I could tell some stories about that one. Historic building with no dock, and anyways, a lot of fun. Downtown, right in the middle of downtown. But so we hired a brewmaster, back in, I guess, April, and, transplanted her from Madison, Wisconsin to Columbia, South Carolina. So right in the middle of at the beginning of the summer. So she went from really cold to really hot, basically because, it was a process of, that's I'm not a technical person. I can, I've kind of set everything up and I've got all the context for the years as far as equipment and everything. But, luckily I know my limits. So, I knew we needed to get someone on the ground, because just started up from the beginning, recipe development, everything like that. So, we've had her on the ground here in town since May. So that's been a great addition. And, now we'll start working on, it's a process. So, I hope to hire some like key accounts person here soon and, to start that process for everything. But that's probably the scariest part was, we can have all the bells and whistles and we have great owners that are willing to make a big investment and do something different. But, if we don't have a liquid that can support it, it's, I've been doing this long and I've had everything from great, amazing craft beer to just not good. And, so to me, it was the most important hire. Well, next to myself, of course. But yeah, so I mean, it's been fun for sure. It was really exciting. And I'm kind of excited to see what we got coming down the road.
Absolutely. And Michael, at your brew pub, because you have to staff, the kitchen side of the operation, you have to staff the servers for the beer. What are the biggest challenges that you're having? You mentioned, just finding people who are willing to stick around. Is it getting them to work in the first place, or is it simply finding them? What are your biggest challenges, and what have you seen success with?
Well, so we're kind of, we are limited service, so we don't have servers. It's order at the bar. So our bartenders are pretty lucky in that they don't have to do much in terms of moving around. They just stand there and wait for people to walk up. And limited service model is kind of a common thing here in St. Louis, and I don't know if it is anywhere else, but everybody orders at the bar, and we have food runners that bring the food out. But other than that, there's not really any staff in the front of the house. It's really all back of the house. And we've been fortunate that most of our bartenders that we've got that are like solid, they've been with us since we opened. The back of the house, we brought on a kitchen manager. Her name's Amber, and she's wonderful. She's really creative, and she's got lots of wonderful ideas and recipes, and people rave about our food. We just participated in the St. Louis Burger Week, and our double smash burgers, it's nothing. I mean, I don't think it's anything special, but people rave about it. And it's all an attribution to her creativity in the kitchen. But I am a high school teacher. So like, I just like pull kids. I'm like, hey, if you're looking for a job, or you let me know. And so we can hire them because, we do more than 55% or 60% of food sales in our brewery, just because people love the food. But it's really, I mean, even then they're kids, so they're not really that reliable. And so, I mean, I don't know. It's really, that's the biggest challenge in the back of the house, is just finding people that want to work, because our location too, we're like in the middle of a neighborhood. So we have wonderful clients that come in. We have wonderful patronage from the whole entire neighborhood. They love us. And we have regulars that come in daily and drink. Our pint club is huge. We have over 200 members in our pint club that come in and get beers every day. And our brewer, actually, I hired him from St. Louis University. Actually started a brewer's program a year and a half ago. So we actually hired him. He was working for Schlafly, if you all are familiar with Schlafly. Here in St. Louis, he was working in there as a cellarman. So he's our brewer now, and he's wonderful. So we've got really solid like key players. It's really just finding enough people to run the daily operations. Because Amber can't cook by herself. So I'll say that's the biggest thing. But the key factor is, the bar lead, the brewer, and the kitchen manager all are really solid individuals, and they're really loyal, and that's a huge component. So, and actually yesterday I just hired a new communications and social media manager. So I'm hopefully going to be able to step away from that role too. So it's been okay for key players, but the minions are what I need.
So Michael, what do you teach in high school?
I teach Spanish.
So I guess that doesn't cross over a whole bunch to the brewery.
No, it doesn't. But actually, it's interesting because we've got some people that come in that are regulars that are Spanish speaking. And one of them owns a Mexican restaurant. So, that's something we started working on, is starting to focus on craft beer that is palatable for Mexican restaurants, which is not something you see. Normally it's Modelo and Bud Light and, all those really light drinking beers. But I think this population of people that run these restaurants, they don't even realize that there's an option out there. People make light drinking local product that they can offer in their place too. So it's a connection that I've been able to make just because I can speak another language.
No, that's fantastic. Have you used that as an opportunity to introduce your beer yet to new markets?
Yeah. I've actually, so one of the things actually I've done is that I've started conversations with one of the restaurant owners who has a son in Mexico that works at a brewery down there. And they've actually spoken with Crowell, which is the distributor here in Missouri for Budweiser products. And they want to carry this brewery's beer here in Missouri, but they have to get it here. So I told them we could contract the beer for them once we open up our new place in the Ozarks. So we're honing in on an agreement on that. So I'm kind of
that's really exciting. And now I want to go back to, you also mentioned sometimes you will hire students. Do they have to be at least 18, or have you hired, people as low as 16?
As long as in Missouri. So Pola mentioned they can self-distribute. We do that too. As long as you have a winery license here in Missouri, you can just self-distribute. And then another law is if you have a certain percentage of food sales, I can hire 14-year-olds as long as they have their work permit. So as long as our food sales are strong, it's legal to do that.
I know I started working when I was just 16 years old. I started selling snow cones at baseball games here in Norfolk, Virginia, and it taught me a lot of skills. Have you seen that hiring, just students out of high school as their first job? Do they treat it with respect? You really get excited to come work at a brewery? Because I know if I was 16 and had the opportunity to work in a pretty cool tap room, that's an awesome first job. But are you seeing that those students that you do hire, are they respecting it and looking at it as an opportunity? Or they mentioned earlier, it's hard to find good work. Are they just not showing up like you would hope?
I would say it's about 2/3 respect it, and we've got really solid work from them. And then about a third are just, slackers. And it's the same in my classroom. I've got about 2/3 that really kind of try, And then about a third, they're like, yeah, screw this. I don't care. So
does it impact your teacher-student relationship at all? If like a student comes to work with you, then doesn't show on their third day, do you kind of have that tension in the classroom?
Oh, no. I totally separate it, and I tell them that too. I'm like, hey, whenever they start, I'm like, I'm your teacher at school. Here, I'm Michael, and I own the place, and you better listen to what the hell I say, or I'll fire you. Like, it's just a different dynamic, and I tell them to keep it separate. Like, they'll come talk to me at school and be like, I have a question about the schedule. I'm like, I don't care. I don't know.
Mr. Michael, what beers are on tap tonight when I show up for work?
Yeah, right. Exactly. No, they don't. But so, and the crazy thing too is we started offering things like we do a full growler fill for full-time employees every shift. The kitchen staff get free meals, and we're working on, people get 50% off anytime on beer, 30% off anytime on food. And despite all that, we're still struggling finding, like I said, minions. I keep calling them minions. I don't know if that's okay or not, but whatever.
Well, thanks for sharing all that. Carmen, we're going to turn the floor over to you because it sounds like you've had almost the opposite experience. You said you've been pretty lucky with your staff through the pandemic.
Yeah.
Why do you think you've been successful maintaining a strong staff?
I think we just have a nice family here. We also have a smaller staff, and Michael mentioned just having that limited service. We are a self-serve pretty much kind of a thing. You come up to the tap room bar, you order your beer, you take it back to your table. We'll come out and bus, but we don't do table service. So, it is limited service. It's a great environment. We try to do, specialty things for our staff throughout the year. Last year was hard to kind of do that with the COVID restrictions. This year it's been better. I'm looking forward to our fall event for staff and for the holiday party, starting to plan those kinds of things out now. But a lot of our staff we've had since the very beginning, or they're still the first 3 and 4. I can count on one staff member, or who have moved into a different position, or who have changed jobs completely, family status, and it's nice. We did implement something different this year. After COVID, we went to a non-tipping business model. It's still kind of early to say, we're still kind of gathering data on that, but it's a higher hourly wage, and then staff don't have to worry about having a slow Sunday versus a busier Friday or Saturday night. They know exactly what they're going to make and take. And then if the nights are kind of crazy busy, we do a shift differential for busier events and that kind of stuff as well. So that's new for us. We modeled it after a business that we came out from Orlando probably 8 or 9 years ago. And it's also something that's kind of up and coming in Ohio.
Carmen, you're a little muffled on your end. I'm not sure what that might be.
Is that better?
That's better. But with regard to that, tipping model you're doing, the no tipping model, how did your staff, react when you first announced that you were switching to that?
I think it was kind of mixed. They did tip pooling before, and we did track a lot of data for an extended amount of time to make sure that we knew about what they were taking home, where that hourly rate needed to be. It wasn't just like we didn't pull numbers out of a hat. They've tracked data for a really long time on cash tips and credit card tips, and tried to make sure that employees were going to be fairly compensated based on what they had been making before. Some of them were kind of excited. Some of them were, I'm just here for the beer discount, and because I like everybody here, and because
you're a little muffled again, Carmen. I apologize.
I'm sorry. Some of them just, they come in. It's just more of a family atmosphere. I would say a lot of them also say that it's their hobby job. They refer to that, where they have a full-time job someplace else, and they come in and they're enjoying just being able to be behind the bar, socialize, talk to people, and just being a part of it. It's been a nice 7 years so far.
How many employees do you have?
We have 6 full-time employees and 13 part-time. 13 part-time.
That's awesome. You've had great success in keeping so many since the beginning. Now, Pola, I think you're here right now with us. How has staffing been for you over the past year and a half?
Staffing has been okay for us. We have 4 teachers that work for us. We're only open Thursday through Sunday. So it's second jobs for most everybody. We have a total of 8. What's interesting is we were mandated full table service until literally just when they dropped the restrictions. So inside and out, we had to run around the bar. My staff might be the only people in America that lost weight during COVID, because we were running, and then we have a couple of steps when we serve outside. But staffing has been pretty good. It's a family atmosphere. We pay higher than minimum restaurant wages, and we make sure everybody, every shift gets up to minimum wage, which is $12 in New Jersey, plus a shared tip pool, which most of my teachers tell me if it weren't for the tips, they wouldn't work.
So one thing that relates both to you and Michael, I think it's fascinating when teachers get into craft beer. I probably told this story on one of these conversations before, but I was talking to someone who owned a tap room in Richmond, Virginia, and they kind of lost all their staff at the start of COVID. They had to rehire, and one of their first hires was a teacher. Knew nothing about the beer, but they hired a teacher. Next thing they knew, they had 3 or 4 teachers on staff. And these teachers, you know, they weren't necessarily passionate about beer, but they were passionate about teaching, which was able to convey to the guests really well and help create an amazing experience. You know, Michael, do you feel you bring some of your career into the taproom with regard to just being a good educator?
I kind of got your question there. It was sort of intermingled with some noise. Can you say it again?
I was mentioning, you know, how another tap room brought in teachers to help, you know, serve the beer as their staff.
Right.
Do you believe you bring in the teaching part of your life to the tap room as in being a great educator?
Yes, and actually most everything that we do with relation to training, with relation to education of how we do things, is all stuff that I do in the classroom. I mean, our menu, for example, we have a smart TV, and it's a Google slide with the stuff on it, and it just rotates automatically. And I use the Google Slides all the time in my classroom. It's great because I share it with my employees, and they can edit it automatically and on the fly if something runs out. You know, that's an example. I do it once a month, sort of talk about who we are and what we're trying to do. And I partner with the public library, so it's more of an educational thing. And behind the bar, you know, I try to educate the bartenders. But being a new company, we started 2.5 years ago, and since my brother and I we have full-time jobs, and this is sort of our other full-time job, it's been really challenging to kind of come up with training and stuff because we're not a corporation, but we try to run like one. And people think that it's a chain when they walk in. They think that the place is owned by a conglomerate because of, you know, we try to make sure everything's structured and looks professional. And that's really important to us, is having an image of really being put together, even though in the back end we're going nuts. But yeah, so for example, on my flight to Fort Myers, I went on vacation with my girlfriend last month. On the way there, I was thinking about how our kitchen staff has been struggling. And so I typed up a whole kitchen manual on how to train our staff in the back of the house proper. So, I mean, that's something that I just do because of how I teach. I teach Spanish. I teach lessons, so I put together stuff all the time on how to learn things. So it's really helpful in that regard. I think sometimes people think I'm talking down to them, but I'm really just trying to simplify things. So that's kind of an area that maybe I need to work on. But in terms of communication, it's been great. I mean, I use WhatsApp. Our team uses WhatsApp, so propagation of social media. Everybody takes pictures, so we have like a picture chat. So I have all this content flowing in from employees. And then, you know, that's something that I do with my students, where I tell them, hey, I want to share what you're doing, take pictures of it, send it to me. So it's something that just percolated into the brewery side. So it's been really great, but it's stressful as a teacher too.
Yeah, of course. Do you ever plan to commit to one career? I don't want to say commit because it makes it seem like you're on the fence, but do you have plans at all to go full-time brewing?
No, I want to retire teacher as a teacher. I mean, I've got 14 more years, so I'm in my 12th year teaching, and I love it. But it is stressful sometimes having both places and running 2 breweries soon.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I want to dive into something you mentioned. You mentioned that, you know, people come into your tap room, they almost feel like they're in a corporate chain restaurant of sorts. You know, craft beer, it's so much that people want to feel like they're in place that's not a chain restaurant. And I know, Jason, you're planning a really big development. I'm sure there's a lot of investment in it. You know, there's a fine line between when you invest a lot of money that you don't look like the next, you know, Cheesecake Factory. How do you still maintain that authentic, independent vibe? This is anyone in the conversation today versus, you know, having that structured, more corporate vibe. But like you mentioned, Michael, having training tools, manuals, having systems in place, whether you're Cheesecake Factory or you're the small brewery, these are all really important things. But how do all of you keep things authentic and independent while also kind of focusing on those business practices we just talked about? And anyone jump in, I'd love to hear.
Yeah, I mean, so I think that's going to be a huge challenge because, I mean, each day I joke with our owner. She's doing a lot of the design stuff, and the one facility that we have is going to be nice, and it's great. But the brewery, I joke with, I was like, I like nice, but I don't need like really stuffy nice. It's still a brewery. It's still a manufacturing with a giant restaurant entertainment complex. So I think a lot of it comes down to marketing and telling the story. I often joke too, my approach with this setup on our big facility and the brand itself is to act like a mid-sized brewery and plan like a mid-sized brewery, even though we're a startup, because nowadays that's the only way I'm going to get a distributor to pay attention to us. So, but again, it's a fine line. You want your customers to know that you're still local. You're still a local Columbia, South Carolina family, and so yeah. I mean, I think a lot of it you're going to have to rely on marketing and your team to tell the story and tell the story in the right way. I think that's just think it's key. But I do think too, as the market evolves and every area is different. I think some of that goes away in the sense of a more developed market. I don't necessarily know how much consumers get too wrapped up anymore in that aspect, because I think as they develop and they grow, ultimately at the end of the day, you want good beer. So regardless of how you feel in the environment, unless it is but I think that eventually that goes away. You go from hyper local to, well, I just really want good beer. So.
And Jason, you had mentioned you want the staff to be able to tell the story of your company. I know you're not open just yet, but if you had to summarize that story in like a 30-second pitch of how you'd like your staff to present it, why is Peak Drift different and why are you going to stand out?
So again, I have a marketing team that is developing that. So,
but they're not here today, Jason. So it's all on you.
No, she could be listening. They were going to jump on and listen. No, so ultimately, again, we do have a unique setup because in our industry, I have our primary owner is a female. We did hire a master brewer that's highly qualified, and she's a female. That necessarily wasn't the plan. It's kind of how it worked out. So yeah, we're going to take that and run. And it's local business owners that, so in Columbia, probably the biggest news, and not just for the city, but for the state, was the fact that White Claw is about to open a $400 million facility here. So, this is a local family that's been here all their life and has tons of, they have a healthcare division. So they've been in the community business wise. So I think it's important to tell that. I mean, this, again, we're a local business, it's a brother and a sister making a local business, but investing significantly in an area and in a historic building too. Again, I think that's a big piece, is taking a part of town that's starting to be, kind of redone and willing to invest that, because just no one spends that type of money. So
I'm excited to visit in the not too distant future once you open up.
Yeah, so you can tell I don't do 30-second versions. So
that's fine.
To the marketing team. So.
Well, Carmen, I'd like to kind of transition to you, because you are a small family-run brewery as well. Has the pandemic forced you to look at some of your business practices to make things run smoother? I know you've had a team that's been there for a really long time, but how do you take staff that's been there for 7 years and say, hey, we're making these processes a little bit different? How do you keep them to stay, active as opposed to getting complacent in the way they do things?
I think we're pretty lucky. One of our partners manages the tap room, and he manages that side of the business, and he's really on top of making sure that information gets out there. We try to get our information out to our staff for events weekly in the community. We have all of the marketing materials that go out, posters, email, and all of that stuff. But trying to keep people engaged during the pandemic, a lot of that just had to do with like I said, our staff is just really involved coming in and helping out. We do try to give our staff the opportunity to work in different areas. All of our brewers, all of our cellarmen have come up from tap room. We're working on transitioning people into some other roles as well, so that those people who want to do more than just the tap room are going to have some of those opportunities in the next 6 to 12 months. We're kind of transitioning into that. I don't know if you know this, we're very similar to Michael. 4 of our 6 owners were former teachers as well.
I mean, I should have just planned this panel to talk about being a teacher and working craft beer. Jeez, guys, come on.
But I think a lot of those kinds of organizational skills and those kinds of abilities and things and just organization that you have to use has really transferred well for us. We do also try to listen to our staff. If they have a complaint, we do try to discuss it, and we do try to come in and talk about it internally and come up with ways to kind of solve it and ask for their help in that. So, I mean, it takes time. It's not, things aren't always solved overnight, but yeah. So
awesome. Thanks for sharing all that. And Pola, I'd like to turn it to you. How do you still maintain that family vibe, that authentic taproom vibe, but while also having processes in place that help you run a better business?
So we really try to keep everyone involved and help them be part of our major decision-making process. Being a son-mother brewing team is kind of unique, in the middle of town, but New Jersey is so different. I mean, we have to, before we're allowed to pour anybody a beer, we have to do a tour. So currently we're being allowed to do like a paper tour, as long as it's a discussion about the process and we're available for any questions, then people are now allowed to order a beer. We're only allowed.
Wait, Pola, I have to stop you there. You say paper tour, as in like you show me a piece of paper with your menu or a picture of your brew house. How does the paper tour work?
So we have a postcard designed by my daughter-in-law, Abby, who's an artist, that is truly a portrait of our system, our 3-barrel system. So it goes from the bag of grains that we get from local farmers in South Jersey through the process. So the last part of that postcard shows the bright tank with kegs and glasses next to it. So, we literally have to make sure people are familiar with the process of how beer is made, and if they have any questions, before they are legally allowed to put a beer to their mouth in New Jersey.
That's fantastic. Well, I think it's fantastic, Michael. And the reason I think it's fantastic is I've heard questionable things about beer in New Jersey over the years, and just, how your state legislature treats things and weird policies you have in place. But you're telling me that New Jersey, the government is passionate about teaching your guests about beer, and I can get behind that. So I think that's fantastic.
That's a good positive twist to the policy.
That's impressive.
Often on a busy night, as I have the postcard in front of me, I will say, compliment. I would like to tell you a little bit about the process of how we make our beer. And are you familiar with the process? Yes, no, kind of like a Venn diagram. Do you have any questions? All right, let's have one.
No, I love it. And Pola, because you're not your brother, I apologize. Your son is your brewer. I like to pose this question to everyone. What's been the hardest relationship for you to maintain over the past 18 months? And Pola, because you're up right now, would it be that relationship with your son? Has it been really challenging, or has it been with your guests, other people involved in the brewery? Like, what's been a challenging relationship for you to maintain over the past year and a half?
Well, losing my son to his other job because of overtime was the most challenging thing. He worried about me being overworked, my being overworked. I worried about him being in a dangerous situation, and we both tried to not put it on each other. He's a full chronological adult now. We've been in business together since teen. And respecting those boundaries of when we're son-mother and when we're business partners has been a good survival tool for us, of that mutual respect. And I think that we just have to keep that going. But just, finding the wherewithal, like I said, we just wanted to get to the other side. We didn't know what shape we would be in when we got there, but we just wanted to get there.
No, absolutely. Jason, I'd like to hear your thoughts on that one. What's been the most challenging relationship for you over the past year? Because I'm sure you're interacting with so many different people as you get closer to opening, but in your life, what would you say that most challenging relationship's been?
And I wouldn't necessarily like pick out one. I think it's a concept of, you know, that the challenges of who you can trust relationship wise when you're dealing with a bunch of different vendors. And again, I'm a sales guy at heart. So at the end of the day, if you're buying, whether you're buying equipment or whatever, it's a sales pitch, you know, and any good salesperson is still trying to sell you something. And like, do we really need this? Will this actually work? You know, to me, that's been a really big challenge, is because you're learning the relationships with these people. You know, a lot of them I've known through the industry through the years, but never really worked like constantly with them. So, okay, trusting them is an important piece. And then, you know, who you really can rely on too, that's really looking out for. Because ultimately what I look for is like, who's really out looking for, you know, the overall concept, you know, what, you know, several of them have been there on the side, you know, and like, hey, look, you may want to look at this. Don't, you know, think about this before you make this decision. And, you know, because I don't think people realize, and a lot of people, even I didn't, you know, when you get into certain scale aspects, you know, I just had the joy of shipping 2,000 empty ball cans to Italy to our filler because they had to have 500 of each can that we planned to run to test the machine. No one knew that we had to do that. So, you know, the cost is, it's not cheap to ship a bunch of cans from Georgia at Ball to Italy. So, you know, stuff like that. So you look to, you know, that's been a big challenge. And then I mean, probably everyone's experienced it, dealing with architects that aren't familiar with the brewing process. And but then they go the opposite way and freak out and go, it's a boiler. And I'm like, it's a boiler. It does, just because it's in a brewery doesn't mean it's any different. It's the same as a boiler that you put in a hospital or any other place. Don't ask me about code stuff. I'm not an engineer, you know, stuff like that. That's kind of been a lot of fun.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Michael, how about you? I mean, you work with your brother. Has that been one of your most challenging relationships?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You didn't even have to. As soon as you said it, I was like, John. I mean, we complement each other really well, but we're also family. So, like, you know, we get into arguments, and we had another partner who he ended up getting a full-time job, and he wanted out, so we bought him out. But it was a trifecta of just horrible like conversations sometimes, where we would just be arguing, and it was because we were family, you know, like we weren't taking it professionally. So at some point I was like, look, man, we need to make sure that when we're brothers, and when we're, you know, here, we're professional, and it's a totally different environment, and how you talk to me or how I talk to you in front of our staff or anybody, you know, is going to be completely different than when we're hanging out on your deck at your lake house. So, like, you know, and that had to be, it's just been a long, arduous process of trying to figure out what that dynamic is. And so now I think we've gotten to the point where we understand one another really well. You know, he's my oldest brother, so like he's always in charge, you know, he gets to make all the decisions. And I say most of the time, I don't care what the decision ultimately is, as long as we're making progress moving forward on something. So for me, I give ideas, but ultimately I let him kind of take the reins, because I know that's sort of who he is and how he plays. And I get to make the decision on the beer side, you know, and that's the side I care about anyway. But we both have our own skill sets that we bring to the table. You know, I do more of the interacting with customers and deal with complaints and stuff like that, because I deal with students who are jerks, you know, sometimes. So I have the more personality of doing that sort of thing. And I have a doctorate in administration. So like I have a whole HR side. So I deal with all the hiring and firing and all that kind of crap. And then he's in finances and digital security. So he does more of the analytics of our business model and what's working, what's not. Like Carmone, you mentioned the whole tip pooling thing. There are companies here in St. Louis that have done that. We are not doing it just because he says those numbers are great. There's no way we could pay them the hourly they're making with these tips they're making. So, you know, he gets to do all the analytics side, which he loves, which I hate. So it's a beautiful marriage between us. We're getting along better now, but that has been the most challenging thing for sure.
I have a brother who's 7 years younger than me, and I know the challenges we face when we work together. You know, my brother is extremely smart. He's very good at a lot of things, and I've got some projects coming up that I'm going to have him help me on, and I'm very excited for his expertise in those things. But I know it's going to be a fun challenge. So, Michael, if you had to give one piece of advice for anyone also working with their brother, what would it be?
I don't know. Just try to split it. You know, just have that conversation up front. Like, hey, let's make sure that we're professional. Professionals, and we treat each other with respect, with relation to the company. And then when we're hanging out as family, you know, we can have our opinions, but ultimately we're in this together because we invested money together and we want to make it successful. And when he has an opinion about something, when I have an opinion about something, it's because we think it's what's best for the company and not because he's being a dick. You know, he truly thinks that whatever he's thinking is the best idea. And I think we just have to hash it out. But,
and Michael, if I'm not mistaken, when you're doing your rebrand as Shortleaf, correct?
Shortleaf, that's right.
You decided to bring in another brother to make the process even smoother, right?
Well, actually, yeah. So my brother and my brother-in-law, so 2 more people. And so we actually have to have that same conversation, but we're going to have it sooner than a year and a half in.
I think we might need to have like a therapy session with you 4 in about a year from now, just to see how things are going.
Yeah, bring us in. No, the great thing is my other brother is a lawyer, so he's doing the legal stuff, like trying to get the licenses in order and everything like that. We actually already have our Ttd approval. We got it quick because my brother did it all correctly. You know, I did it the first time and it took like 6 months. My other brother-in-law. Or my brother-in-law is in finance and corporate finance. So he's going to be doing the financials instead of my brother, John. So John can focus more on making the business better with numbers. Bob's going to be doing the actual numbers and Matt will do legal and I'll be making beer.
Well, I think you really came to an interesting point there. It's great to have people whose expertise is in different areas because it's easier to allocate different tasks at the brewery and you're just less butting heads, but rather everybody having their own area that they're really great at.
Yes. John, you stay in the back of the house. I'll run the front of the house.
Now, Carmen, you're up. You've had time to think about this. Now, what's been your most challenging relationship over the past year and a half? And I don't want to jump to it, but your husband also works at the brewery. Is that correct?
He does. He does. Actually, it's nice because we carpool together. But we actually don't see, I mean, everybody thinks that we're working side by side all day and we're not. He's typically over in the production, in the brew houses, and I'm typically over in the offices, working on different things or with the camera, kind of going out in different places and getting photographs or just on the computer, a lot. So we're not really together at work. And I think I'm pretty lucky because I spent 20 years in education before coming into this, and he was very active with helping me at that job as well. He would come in and help me after hours. I taught visual arts for 20 years, so it was nothing for him to come in and help set up an entire weekend of an art show or take works across the state. It's just something that we've both kind of done that, you know, ever since we've been married. It's just been very supportive. And like I said, we don't really get to spend a lot of time while we're here. A lot of the time he'll finish his shift and go have a shift beer, hang out at the bar, and I'll still be over here or vice versa. So, but I don't know if challenging would be the right word for any of that. It's been actually pretty complimentary.
No, that's fantastic. I think it's all about teamwork. We've kind of talked about the past couple minutes. Now, I mean, it's hard to believe we've almost been chatting an hour, but, you know, I want to look at the past year and a half one more time. I don't want to look at it just and complain about everything that the pandemic's brought on us, but I want to look at it and think of one additional challenge that you've had in your tap room, in your brew house, something that you didn't expect. And what was your solution for it? We have so much we can learn from one another, and anybody listening today, you know, the challenge that you had might be something that can help them moving forward. So anyone, the floor is yours. You know, what's something you experienced you didn't expect, and how did you solve the problem? I know I said I wasn't going to call on anybody. Pola, you're up.
Yep, I'll go first. So right before the pandemic, we had ordered a 4-head canning and bottling line. It got delivered. We started to work out the issues with it, and boom, next thing you know, Sean's working more than overtime at his other job, and we felt it was not safe to put that into play without the 2 of us getting our arms around it. So all of our takeout in the very beginning was pure growlers, and then there was a growler and bottle shortage, as well as a can shortage, because for special parties I was still canning one at a time for people that wanted it. And that became a real challenge because the suppliers, I mean, you could even see with the restaurants that, you know, we're not getting enough supplies to even do takeout. It was interesting for us to get labels and to get, you know, supply bottles. It took us several months to do that, but we were able to find another supplier. But it was interesting.
Challenging, I'm sure. Carmen, are you ready? Jason, you ready? Whoever wants to go next, let's do it.
I would say when the first shutdown happened for us in Ohio, we were very lucky because breweries were considered a part of the restaurant industry. So we were able to still sell beer to go. We couldn't have people hanging out in the tap rooms, but we could still do beer to go. We transitioned our business model entirely for to go sales. We ramped up our canning, and at that time we were using a mobile canner. Our canning line had not come in yet, and that was delayed with COVID. But the mobile cannery came in, you know, every couple of weeks and began canning for us, and we were pushing product out the door, so we weren't losing any of that. And then as we reopened, the shortages, and we're still facing some of those supply shortages now, which has been kind of an issue. We know that, you know, the shippers have lost staffing, you know, people have quit. And then we found out that our grain that was supposed to be here 2 days ago is still sitting on a dock someplace because there's no one to deliver it to the next leg of it. And that's happened multiple times. So I think just kind of rerouting release dates, revamping the business model a little bit to make it work. I mean, I can't imagine having just shut down completely for 2 or 3 months, like some of the places had to in town, and not being able to have our staff give them the opportunity if they want to work. And the majority of our staff that stayed throughout that time are not our part-time, but the majority of staff wanted to stay working. They didn't want to sit at home. They wanted to continue coming in every day, which was, I mean, that was where we were at. I didn't, but yeah, I would say just kind of pivoting the business model a little bit and then pivoting it back again every time there was a change, which seemed like every 6 weeks. And then still kind of fighting with those delays in shipments and materials.
I'm sure it's making you better adapting in the future. So the skills we didn't know we'd learned this past year. Jason, how about you? You know, as a brewery and creeping closer to opening, you know, what's an unexpected challenge besides having to ship 500, you know, cans to Italy? What's something you've had to solve?
Well, I mean, so we've had to solve so many things because you just can't rely on the supply chain right now, and that causes, I mean, just domino effect. So, you know, and then again, we've had everyone from some design engineers on the team, you know, designing some of our equipment that have left the company, and there's all these just laundry list of things that you know, at some point you just kind of got to smile. But I think, you know, I think the most important thing is to look at it and this is, I say this all the time, is guys, we work in the beverage industry. I mean, we're not curing cancer and, you know, or anything like that. I just don't think you can, you know, I can probably say this because it's not versus the others on this group. It's not my money. So it's really just my reputation and stuff, but it just, there's no need to like get overly anxious, or you just have to roll with the punches and figure it out and adapt and just keep moving on, because again, we're not, you know, I think perspective can have a lot. I have a child with cerebral palsy, and I mean, gee, it's, you know, come on guys, this is gonna, you just, but now I think the biggest thing you have to do is you have to quickly realize the issues and you need to start planning for them. I mean, so when I look at right now, some of the things we're working on right now, I basically just lie to the vendor and say, I need it by this day, knowing that he's going to get delayed a handful of days. Then the trucking company is not going to show up on time. Then it's going to get stuck. So, you know, if you listen, if they say, oh no, we can get it to you in 10 days. If you listen to that, that's your own fault, because that's what you have to adapt. You have to start planning and adding a couple weeks here and there to certain things. You know, that's I guess how you fix that. And that's what I've been doing.
There's definitely been a lot of conversation in CBP recently about just delays on every front. So I think planning ahead, patience, and positivity are 3 key virtues to have going forward.
Well, so also too, then you're going to get in a situation where we've got like 9 sea containers of equipment coming for our other facility. And because it got delayed with construction, I would love for those to be like, say, a month late or 2 months late, like our other project, which actually hurt us. But guess what? Those bad boys are going to ship right on time now. So you see what I'm saying? Like, you're just like, the time I need it to be like 2 months late, it's not going to be. So yeah, I mean, just roll.
And you open in October?
Well, yeah, our small facilities in the middle of October, and again, yeah, our timeline was tight. So I lied to everyone and had them coming in, and we had about 30 days of buffer in case there's any issues. Well, then the tanks were delivered about a month late, so I lost all my 30 days. So yeah, and then
I hope any of your suppliers they're not listening today. Hopefully.
No. Listen, it's not their fault. I mean, it's not. I mean, honestly, they've been great. I mean, you can't control. Actually, so far, most of the suppliers have been on time. It's all about freight. It's all about the port. It's all about getting. I mean, literally, they didn't have anyone to load it. Then they didn't have anyone or to put it into the containers. Then they didn't have a ship. They got a ship, but there was no crew. I mean, like these are like legit things that are constantly happening, and it's happening to everyone. But you just man, wow, it's interesting.
Well, good luck getting to October and getting facilities open. I can't wait to visit. And Michael, we'll finish up on you on this one.
So I don't know. I mean, the pandemic really threw everybody into a whirlwind of issues and problems, and we tried to problem solve every single thing that came forward. I mean, we have a new POS because we needed a better to-go system that when we didn't have to go online. We didn't have cans or labels or any intention of doing that ever. So once the pandemic hit, most breweries actually around us used one company, like a mobile canner, kind of like Carmen said, to do their canning. And many small breweries here in St. Louis, they just would put like a sticker on the can because it was like nobody cared at that point what was happening because everybody was going nuts. But we actually invested time and energy to getting actual labels made so that way when everything was going to be corrected, we would be ready to go to push out product. And so because we did that, we were kind of had 1 foot forward compared to other people. And so, I mean, that was a great investment for us. And I'm really happy that we did that. Opening the second location, the only reason we're doing that is because we're spending, upwards of $8,000 a month outsourcing, and that there is going to pay for our new project. And so it's just, there's been a lot of things that have happened this last year that in the last 18 months that really pushed us to become a better company. And as Carmen said, we just pivoted when the pandemic hit. We had a week off because everything shut down for a week. We weren't allowed to even be open. And then in St. Charles County, which is where we're at in St. Louis, which is west of St. Louis County, we were basically, our health department was like, what pandemic? So we were allowed to be open with limited service, but we were able to bounce back much faster because they opened up the gates and people from St. Louis were coming out to St. Charles County and experiencing what we have to offer because they couldn't go anywhere in St. Louis County. So we were fortunate in that regard. Obviously, people were concerned about social distancing and stuff like that. They weren't coming, but all of our staff was wearing gloves and masks, and dealing with all that was a pain too, just because people in St. Charles County didn't care about the pandemic. And you're seeing that echo of that now in Missouri with the whole, what's it called? The variant now?
Delta variant.
Variant. In Missouri, we're having issues now. St. Louis County just started doing the mask mandate again this week. So it may come back in Missouri and Florida and Texas to where people are having to limit service again. And I don't know if it'll happen in St. Charles County because it didn't last time. But, as everybody's kind of said, I mean, the pandemic really taught a lot of hard lessons to some companies and really good lessons to others. And I think we were one of the fortunate ones that learned a lot of good things and really did a good job of bouncing back from some really serious problems. So
no, absolutely. Sounds like you did a fantastic job. And I think you have your work ahead for you as you plan a brewery 2 hours away from where you're at.
Yeah. Well, the production side will be open in October, hopefully. And then we're going to open a tasting room in the spring because Lake of the Ozarks, I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's really popular when it's warm out. but it's a kind of a ghost town in the wintertime. So
there's a lot of money laundering that goes on there. Is that correct?
Yeah, Ozarks, right? Look out for season 7.
I hope to see you there. Yeah, I love it. But for everybody else, I want to end on like a positive note. So looking back over all the craziness and unknowns we've dealt with over the past 18 months, what's been the number one positive in your life, whether it's personal, your brewery? What's a positive takeaway that you've experienced over the pandemic? Just do lightning round. And Michael, because you're here already, let's just say you could start.
Positive?
Positive.
I don't know. I guess just the fact that we're expanding. I think that's huge. Opening up a 6,000 square foot production facility at the lake is going to be awesome. It's going to really open up opportunity for us to really get our product out. We have our flagship is our blood orange wheat. It sells like crazy, and we're going to push it at the lake because we know a lot of the bar owners and resort owners down there, and so that's something that I think I'm really looking forward to and really excited about. But really, like, I think I spoke to, honing in on my relationship with my brother. I would say that probably trumps that, like getting to know him more personally. He's pretty much my best friend. So it's nice to have him in my life. And I'm really happy that we're partners. And we'll see how this move goes with the other two.
Good luck. We'll check back on that one later. Carmen, you're up. We'll just keep going around in a circle.
I would say probably finding a new balance between personal and business life. Activities, and then also just the increased production and change of business model from pre-COVID, during COVID, and post-COVID. So lots of expansion as far as products in cans. We went from 2 cans to, I believe we're at 15 now. So yeah.
Good things are coming on the horizons. Keep staying positive. Pola, it looks like you made it out of the car. Are you at your final destination yet? You're on mute. You made me say it. I'm sorry.
Thank you. We're not at our final destination, but my other half had to make a stop. So I'm out of the car at about, I would say halfway, 4-hour trip. We're 2 hours in, and it feels good to walk around. But I had to get in the shade to see where the mute button was. And I would have to say my positive note is the fact that, we talked a lot about bringing people into the group that have different talents, bringing us all together. I usually say that you put my family together and we're so different, we make one whole brain. And my grandson is now 15, and he's very interested in getting into the business. He'd like to develop, until he's 21, he'd like to develop a line of craft sodas. So being able to talk about the science of what it is we do and the difference between making soda, hard seltzer, and beer, is really a lot of fun, because there's a lot of opportunity here. And it just made us stop to rethink what we want to do and how we want to do it, and how we want to do it as a growing family of both blood relatives and friends.
No, I love the family component there. And just the other day, I mean, you talk about the 15-year-old there getting involved in the processes and just learning. My son and I were going to pick up dinner for my wife. We were driving by a local brewery, and I go, hey, Max, that's the brewery we go to sometimes. And I said, can you say brewery? And to hear a young kid say the word brewery for the first time, whether he's 2 or 15 years old, know that they know what you're talking about. It's exciting when you have family involved.
But then I have the 4-year-old grandson, Mike Finnegan, who, when you ask him where does his grandmom live, and they call me Moonbeam, so we say, where does Moonbeam live? And Finnegan will look at you and say, at the brewery.
And doesn't it make you smile every time?
Every time.
Awesome. Jason, how about you? Send us out on something positive from your past year.
Yeah, so really, honestly, I think the biggest thing is 22 years in this industry, and unfortunately, I've not always worked for I've worked for some old crusty dudes that got in the way. But the biggest positive is the group I work for. I mean, the owners, they're amazing. Getting to know them, and I mean, because I took a big risk with this project, and they're obviously taking a way bigger risk, but I think they're everything anyone could want to work for in this industry, and that's my biggest thing. I'm just kind of I just feel really blessed and excited that I get to work for some, a brother and a sister, and then their fathers around a lot. And they're just great. Again, it's kind of reinvigorates you that you've got really sound business people that are just fun and see the industry and want to kind of take it to the next level. So that's definitely the biggest positive, getting to know them.
No, I love it. It's all about having relationships with people you really like spending time around. It seems like the four of you have definitely done a really good job of that. So I like to thank all of you for sharing your experiences today. What a weird year. It's going to be great moving forward. Lots of excitement coming. But Michael, Carmen, Pola, and Jason, appreciate you hanging out with me a little bit. Hopefully in the not too distant future, this is in person. So looking forward to that. But thanks again for sharing your expertise, and we'll see you all soon.
Thank you.
Thank
you. Bye,
everybody.
everybody.
Enjoyed it.
Bye.
See ya.
Thank you. Bye.